Welcome back. Now, over 70 years ago, Tata Airlines flew in the DC-3 aircraft into India, and since then we've seen the 747, the 777, the 737 and the game-changing 787 Dreamliner being offered by Boeing. They're a key player really in India's civil aviation sector, selling planes to airlines like Air India, Jet as well as SpiceJet. In fact, Air India has been using Boeing's commercial airplanes since the year 1960. When they acquired the first 707 jetliner. And ever since then, this market, the Indian market, has been steadily growing for Boeing. They forecasted that the Indian aviation market is going to require more than 1,600 new commercial jets, all valued at approximately $205 billion US, and this could happen over the next 20 years or so. So clearly, the opportunity is huge. And joining us right now is Dinesh Keskar. He's Senior Vice President, Asia Pacific and India Sales at Boeing Commercial Planes. Let's get a sense of how they're growing the market and their brand and their presence in India. Mr. Keskar, great to have you with us. Let me begin by asking you about the pillars, really, on which you've based the Boeing brand so far. You've got legacy over here. How have the USPs that the brand has been built on shifted in recent times as well?
Well, our basic brand equity has been based on integrity, trust, and delivering what we commit. And I think these values have not changed, but what has been added is supporting the customer and making sure we are partnering with everybody.
Mr. Keskar, considering the projected growth for the Indian aviation sector, how are you designing your marketing strategy to form a stronger base, a stronger market for your aircraft in India?
The Indian market is one of the highest growth market, as we said today. And the way we are doing is we are creating products in the single aisle market like the 737 MAX, and in the twin aisle market like the 777X and the 787 Dreamliner, which are going to be unprecedented in terms of operating economics, in terms of passenger appeal, and finally the profitability of the airline. That is how we are trying to capture this market.
Okay, so keeping all of this in mind, what's your assessment now of the requirements of the Indian airline companies in terms of the kind of aircraft they require? And how are you going to go about convincing them of the offerings that Boeing is making at this point?
Sure. We think the requirements for the Indian airlines in India for the next 20 years is about 1,740 airplanes worth $240 billion. And the way you convince them is very simple. You show them how your product is more economical to operate, how your product is something that the passenger would like to fly on, and finally, how the airline has better economics so they can make more money with it.
Mr. Keskar, I also want to bring in the question of pricing. I want to understand how significant a role pricing has played in determining the right marketing approach to the Indian aviation market.
No, pricing is key to any market, and aviation is no different. But pricing coupled with value should be the strategy of any company, and that's what Boeing believes in.
Mr. Keskar, I understand that you have a good base in India. The foothold is strong, but the competition is really biting at your heels. So when it comes to the competition between Airbus A320neo and the Boeing 737 MAX among the single-aisle aircraft, that seems to be stiff. So how are you planning to go about winning both the perception game and the strategic battle to be able to rule Indian skies going ahead from here?
Sure. So the 737 MAX competes with A320neo, and 737 MAX has sold over 2,831 airplanes in the world, and we feel that our airplane has better fuel efficiency, in fact 14% better than today's 737 NGs that many airlines in India are operating, and secondly it offers the same comfort and same feature and lower maintenance cost, and that's how you convince the airlines. Again, it goes back to the same basic principle: lower cost, higher revenue. That's what results in higher profitability.
Now, Mr. Keskar, along the way, you will have incidents like the MH370, very unfortunate. Invariably, this raises concerns about the safety of an aircraft as well, and the manufacturer is put under the scanner. So which incidents in the past have been the biggest damage control exercise for brand Boeing, and how did you go about dealing with it?
Look, aviation safety is the industry issue. It is not an issue of Boeing or anybody else or just any other company. So we all work together and we make sure that the aviation transportation system stays the safest in the world, and everything possible that can be done is being done to make this system safe all the way from the time you check in till you take your bag and go home.
So, Mr. Keskar, I also want to ask you about Air India, which has about 21 Boeing 787 Dreamliners. Several of these have been grounded for technical reasons. Obviously, when you have something like that happening, it must prove to be a major marketing challenge for future sales of the Dreamliner, considering that it has been much talked about. But how does it affect sales going ahead now?
Well, the reality is, you should ask this to Air India, but we know we look at their operating statistics. Air India is running about 1,200 flights a month, and they're doing that with 21 airplanes that we have delivered. One was just delivered recently, and if you look at their assessment on the turnaround plan, they're doing better than what they projected because of the availability of the 787-8 and the fuel burn it provides and the passenger appeal it provides. So I would submit that our airplane is performing well. And yes, every airplane in the beginning has technical issues, and we continue to work with them and assist them as quickly as we can to help them to get out of them.
Mr. Keskar, I also want to ask you about the marketing challenge that really comes up when you are moving the design and the manufacturing of Boeing jets outside the US. How much of a challenge does it pose to the company, considering the kind of standards that are associated, at least in perception? So it may not exactly be the same when you're taking it all out of the US. How do you fight that battle?
You know, it's hard to answer that question because Boeing has always designed and built its airplane in the United States. We do component designs outside, and that works fine. We've been doing it for a number of years. As long as they meet the strict FAA standards and they meet the strict requirements of the Boeing company, we should be fine.
All right, before we let you go, Mr. Keskar, just wanted to ask you one last question. By way of branding, by way of marketing, tell us what it's going to take for Boeing to rule the skies in India, as it were, over the next few years of projected growth.
Well, our product quality, the customer satisfaction, and having the right product with the right operating economics is what is going to help us to create our brand to be the most successful brand in aviation in India. And we feel we have all the right ingredients to do so, and that is why Dreamliner is flying in India, 777s are flying in India, 737 NGs are flying in India, and Maxes are being ordered. So we are quite pleased with our branding presence in India, and we just want to build on